Meeting, can we get a roll call?
Committee Member Labrie.
Here.
Committee Member Evers.
Here.
Committee Member McRae.
Here.
Committee Member Pratt.
Here.
Committee Member Stahl.
Here.
Vice Chair Newkirk.
Here.
And Chair Pinner.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
All right, staff, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda, Chair Newkirk, or Vice Chair Newkirk.
I'll take the promotion. All right, now is an opportunity for public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the committee for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the committee that is not scheduled for a public discussion before this committee today. Are there any public comments?
We have no speakers.
All right, back to staff for any announcements.
Thank you, Acting Chair Newkirk. So 2 quick announcements today. First off, the Carrillo Commuter lot, which has been slated for redevelopment by the Housing Authority for several years now. We're pleased to report that that project is moving forward, and we plan to hand the lot over mid-November. So we are preparing to wrap up our permit program in there, as well as other uses of the lot, and that will become the jurisdiction of the Housing Authority following that date. And then I'd also like to make an announcement, a little bit of good news. I just want to recognize Chelsea Swanson, who is not here this morning, but she is our project planner who does so much hard work on our capital improvement program and all of our capital projects, and she was recognized as Public Works Employee of the Month for September. So we thank Chelsea for everything that she does for us.
Great, thank you. Next item is the consent agenda. And we need a motion on approval of the minutes for September 11th, 2025.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd move that we accept the minutes as presented.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a first and a second, and we're going to have to do a roll call vote. Is that correct?
Committee Member Labrie.
Yes.
Committee Member Evers.
Yes.
Committee Member McRae.
Yes.
Committee Member Pratt.
Yes.
Committee Member Stahl.
Sorry, remind me, if I wasn't there, can I approve the minutes? Yes.
Vice Chair Newkirk.
Yes.
Chair Pinner.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that's a 7-0 vote, which we have not had in a long, long time. It's very exciting. All right, so we're on to the second item. Now on the administrative agenda, we have the Paseo Nuevo redevelopment project. Should I pass that to you, Sarah?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Newkirk and committee members. Today, this is obviously our big item, and I know this is something that the committee has been eager to discuss. So we have Tess Harris here, who is the master planner who in the city administrator's office, who is handling the Paseo Nuevo proposed redevelopment project. We also have Dan Henschke and City Attorney Sarah Connect here as well to give a presentation and answer questions.
And Ms. Clark, before we get started, just to be clear, so we have a recommendation to receive the presentation, provide comments, and then consider a motion to formally adopt and transmit to the committee comments to staff and city council. So that gives us kind of scope if we want to give something more formal than just our feedback, but that would be, through a motion and a vote. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you wanted to vote, for example, to put together a letter or a formal transmittal of those comments, you can do so.
All right, thank you.
All right. Good morning, committee members. My name is Tess Harris. It's great to be in front of you again today. I'll be walking through the Paseo Nuevo redevelopment project. The city is really excited to bring this project forward, and so we'll get started. Take us to the next slide. All right, so going into what this project is. So Paseo Nuevo, where the current outdoor shopping mall is located, this project would include a demolition of the former Macy's building on the corner of State and Ortega. And in that location, a development of 233 market rate rental residential units. It would also include a new 20,000 square foot retail space at the corner of State and Ortega on the first floor, an addition of 28 parking spaces for that new market area, a demolition of one of 3 bays in parking lot 2, which equals about 186 parking spaces, and in that location, a development of 80 units of income-restricted affordable rental units. This just gives you an overview of the location that we're talking about. So Macy's on the right-hand side is the area where the market rate units would be, and then Lot 2 on the far left portion of Lot 2 is where the income-restricted rental units would be. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit of project background. So just as a refresher, the Paseo Nuevo property was acquired by the redevelopment agency in the late 1980s, and the land was assembled from real property that was owned by both the city of Santa Barbara as well as acquisitions from private property owners on the 700 and 800 blocks. And it was for the 40,000 square foot outdoor retail mall that you see there today. The redevelopment project that's before you, is really crucial to looking at the city's future in terms of economic development, community vitality, and overall housing development in our downtown core. So when we look at the city center, and this, the top map really shows you kind of the State Street master plan area, but the main focus is that city center core where you have Paseo Nuevo, City Hall, De La Guerra Plaza, and those 3 blocks right around it. And so this would also send us, maybe most importantly, a strong market signal to property owners and developers in the nearby area that are considering State Street, and particularly considering this area for housing development. So I'm going to go into who the applicant is. So the city owns essentially the dirt, the ground of the project currently. And then we have an applicant who's the leaseholder. It's Alliance Bernstein. They're a global investment management firm. And they've assembled a development team for this particular project. So they have a developer, the Georgetown Company, working on the project, as well as an architect, a national architect and a local architect, Gensler and AB Design Studio. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ground leases and then how AB acquired the property. So there are 75-year ground leases that were acquired in 1989, originated in 1989 with the redevelopment agency. Once the redevelopment agency dissolved, those leases transferred over to the city, and they're controlled by the city's charter. The city's charter only allows for a 50-year lease without the opportunity for a lease to be extended. And there's a 40-year term left on those leases. And so even though the city owns the land, as I mentioned, you could think of it as the dirt under the mall, the ground leases provide almost all ownership rights above that ground area to the leaseholders. And AB is the Paseo Nuevo Mall's owner, with the exception of the Nordstrom's property, because they made a loan on the property that the borrower, at the time the leaseholder for the Macy's and the inline shops, defaulted. And so instead of selling it, AB came to the city a few years back and really in wanting to sort of partner and think about a project that could be satisfactory for the city's downtown core, something that would benefit all of us. And so here shows the current ground lease interest. Again, Nordstrom is not part of the proposal before you today, but the AB parcel extends the Macy's from the Macy's piece, as well as those inline shops that you see highlighted in red. This is an overall project timeline for what we've been doing up to now. So over the last couple years, AB and the city team have been working on negotiating the project that you see before you today, with the goal of going before City Council before the end of the year with a disposition and development agreement. And so I'll focus more on what's occurred in the last couple months. The project agreement that was approved by City Council about a year ago in March 2024. At that time, they had also provided comments on what they wanted to see as part of the development. And so that project agreement was modified in August. We went back to City Council to get that modification for the project, that the number of units that you see before you today. Important to note, the parking lot 2 was also exempted from the Surplus Lands Act at that time in August of this year. We went to the Housing Authority Board and the Historic Landmarks Commission in September for the Housing Authority to get their feedback and also allow their executive director to really work with the city and negotiate the portion of Lot 2. And then with HLC concept review, that hearing was focused on concept review. They provided design comments to the applicant and to the city. Later this afternoon, we'll be doing a similar hearing in front of the Planning Commission for concept review. So getting the Planning Commission's comments and feedback that can be forwarded to council before the disposition and development agreement is approved. We also have some open houses for the public coming up next week on Wednesday and Thursday, and I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. So this next slide talks about the overall project statistics. So as we've talked about, there's 233 units, 80 affordable rental units. Important to note that they're using the state density bonus law, which is why units are required there. They're required to have 24 units of low income, so they are proposing above that. Perhaps of more interest to this committee, the parking spaces in Lot 1. In total, there are 600 parking spaces proposed, and you'll see the breakdown there for retail, residential, and then the market area. And then parking spaces in Lot 2 would be reduced to 383 parking spaces. I'm going to walk quickly through what the project looks like, the project rendering. So this is an aerial view of Chapala and Ortega. Again, you'll see that market rate project on the right-hand side of the slide, and the income restricted units over on the left near the Canary Hotel. This just provides some local context for what the architects, really looked at in our downtown core to think about what the design should look like, along with the retail experience. So while we're focused in the presentation on the market rate and affordable units and the parking lots, the applicant is also proposing to really enhance the retail experience in Paseo Nuevo and think about what the retail strategy looks like holistically with this project. I think this is almost the exact same one a couple slides ago, so I'll skip through this. This is an aerial view at Chapala and Canon Perdido. Just showing you from a different perspective what the two buildings look like. Think of important to kind of look at in particular is Lot 2, where you see the income restricted residential, and adjacent to it is the remainder of parking Lot 2. So you'll see those two bays that remain, and then that third bay would be removed. This shows you just a site plan and overall look of the project. And then the next couple slides are showing you what the spaces could look like. So this is sort of an example of what some of the public space areas in the development could look like, as well as what some of the private space areas could look like. This is a view from the corner of State and Ortega where that market would be located, and immediately behind it, not visible from the eye, but behind it would be those 47 parking spaces for the market. This is a view inside Paseo Nuevo. Again, another view of the public space area inside the project. And this one's a little bit hard to see, but it's really to show kind of the elevation and the overall look of the project from State Street. What it's showing is although the street does have an incline, it is showing a similar height to the Balboa building. The Balboa building is the one right in the middle of this elevation. This is a view from the corner of Chapala and Ortega. So just to give you a different perspective here, with the idea that some of the ground floor on Chapala would be, it has the potential for retail. And this is just to show you a section kind of where that parking would be located, where the existing parking is, and then where some of the market parking is located. This is another section to show you the parking configuration along with the 6 levels of residential and the market rate units. So you'll see the existing parking that's there today along with the newer parking behind the market. And then this is another parking diagram. It shows you the yellow is where the residential parking would be located. So at the top floor of the parking structure, as well as a portion of the basement level where the kind of Macy's parking area is currently located. And then the remainder would be for retail, public space, public use. So I'll now talk a little bit about the affordable housing portion of the project at Lot 2. So it would include 6 levels of affordable housing at approximately about 20-25% of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s. So pretty much an even spread there. This shows you just kind of a street view and some sections really just to get a sense for what the view might look like from the Canary Hotel and the massing of the building. Then this is an overall view of the property at Chapala. So just to give you another sense of what the structure could look like, important to note we would be keeping that alleyway free and clear and open with a 20-foot clearance. It's something that the Canary Hotel uses. It's also access for the Paseo behind or kind of in between State Street and Lot 2. So that would remain open and available. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the parking statistics. The reciprocal easement agreement that we talked about before, that's the agreement where there are 3 parties to it. So it's the Nordstrom's parcel, AB, who owns Macy's and the inline shops, and the city. And so those 3 parties at the end need to come to an agreement on what the project and what opportunities can exist on the Paseo Nuevo site, and mainly housing. So currently, residential uses are not allowed via the reciprocal easement agreement, and so that would be amended as part of this disposition and development agreement. The current agreement requires 572 parking spaces in Lot 1 and 1,115 spaces within a 2-block radius of the project. Lots 2 and Lots 10. And then the parking covenants grant Paseo Nuevo non-exclusive rights to the uses of Lots 2 and 10. So those were all part of the original project back in the late 80s. And just to reiterate, all parking in Lots 1, 2, and 10 are public parking spaces. So while Lot 1 is privately managed and Lots 2 and 10 are publicly managed, they are all open to the public. So these are the current parking lot statistics. You'll see the total spaces for Lots 1, 2, and 10. And then important to note kind of peak occupancy, what we're currently seeing for each of these lots. Lot 1 is, since it's privately managed, was a little bit harder to get that data. So it's approximately 50% on weekdays and approximately 75% on weekends per their parking manager. And then you'll see sort of more of a breakdown for Lots 2 and Lots 10, getting really at about 30% for Lot 2. That lot is not fully utilized currently. And then Lot 10, you'll see a slight increase on the weekdays. So more users are there on the weekdays. And then below it's showing you the permit holders. I'll just note the 34 private that's noted under Lot 2. Those are the holders that when the original agreement for Paseo Nuevo in the late 80s took place, those are from private property owners that received those permits for the long term in that lot. So I'll now talk about the proposed parking program and just want to highlight a few things here. So first, the city's goal for this project overall is to provide more housing downtown. Our downtown is really underutilized in terms of housing development. We have less than 5% of square footage directed at housing between Chapala and Anacapa Streets and State Street to the underpass. So significantly lower percentage than many other communities see. Residential parking is also not required in our central business district. And so wanted to highlight that while the applicant is proposing some residential parking for the market rate units, it's not a requirement. And we do have a maximum of 1 space per unit in the central business district. So there isn't an ability for somebody to propose more than that. And then the zone of benefit that exists doesn't require parking for retail uses on site. And just want to highlight that that zone would not change despite the loss of parking in parking lot 2. So this is the parking program, again showing the existing parking for lots 1, 2, and 10. Lot 10 does not change as part of this project, so I'm not going to talk too much more about lot 10. Lot 1, you'll see the market rate residential, 233 units are identified for that. And then the anchor tenant, which is the market concept on State and Ortega, would be allocated 47 spaces. And the remainder of the uses, the 320 spaces, would be allocated for retail and general public use. This is the applicant parking analysis. So I wanted to stop here for a minute and just talk through this. Because one of the things that they did was look at the retail square footage that exists today and calculate what the parking ratio is as a result of that retail square footage. So currently, with about 450,000 square feet of retail space in Paseo Nuevo, there's their required parking stalls using that calculation would be 918 stalls. When it's dropped down significantly because much of that square footage is transferred over to residential. And so as it's dropped down to less than 200,000 square feet, with that same parking ratio, the required parking stalls drops to 350 stalls. This also accounts for the maximum allowance for residential units. So this is assuming that not only the 233 market rate units would get 1 space for parking, it's also assuming, which is not in the proposal, but also assuming that there would be 1 space per unit for the 80 affordable residential units. And it's assuming that the 100 units on the would be proposed on the Nordstrom site and would get a parking space per unit. So that would then, with the residential, would bring it to 763 spaces. And then you'll see the breakdown there of what the lots accommodate. With that 763 in lots 1 and 2 solely can account for that with an excess, meaning that, if you took out lot 10 entirely, you'd still be able to accommodate the required uses in lots 1 and 2. And so you'll see that total excess parking highlighted at the bottom. It really very similar to the original parking program with a few spaces less. If you were to take out the residential parking spaces for the affordable units and for Nordstrom, since they are not being proposed to have at least the affordable units are not being proposed to have parking, then you get significantly more excess spaces, about 946. So we'll talk briefly about the Surplus Land Act exemption. City Council adopted the resolution to declare Lot 2 exempt under the Surplus Lands Act during that August 2025 hearing. They also previously adopted a similar resolution for all of the Paseo Nuevo parcels. And then HCD has approved both of those City Council resolutions. So the next steps, moving into December, staff is working on a disposition and development agreement. And so this agreement would establish the scope and the scale of the project. So that includes the number of residential units, the location of those units, parking, the affordability requirements, and the overall building height. And then it would establish the terms and conditions that would need to be met before the city transfers property over. It also establishes a general timeline for development of the project and the overall process and time for the design review portion of the project. and then performance guarantees and the city's financial contribution. And so we're here before you today to get your comments in advance of finalizing the disposition and development agreement that will go before City Council. We're also going, like mentioned earlier, to the Planning Commission today for that same, to get their comments and feedback. And then we'll continue to be working with the Housing Authority over these next few months regarding the Lot 2 affordable housing development potential with them as a potential partner. And then public hearing with City Council will be in December of this year. Assuming that moves forward, we would then be moving into the land use entitlement application and review stage, and that's anticipated to occur late 2025, probably more likely early 2026. And then the project would return to the Historic Landmarks Commission for design review for the land use entitlement process, and they would be the ones making the approval of the design for the project. So more information is available. We have some flyers as well for anybody in the public that would like to take one at the counter. We have 2 public outreach meetings coming up on Wednesday and Thursday next week at Paseo Nuevo. So it's at 707 Paseo Nuevo. It's a current vacant property in Paseo Nuevo. It's somewhat near the Nordstrom's building. And you can show up anytime. We'll be there 6 to 7:30 on Wednesday evening, as well as 12 to 1:30 on Thursday afternoon to get questions, comments, feedback, and to provide details for the project. We also have a website on the city's overall website, so you can get more details for the project at santabarbaraca.gov/Paseo Nuevo for anybody in the public that would like to follow. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. We're all available for questions. And thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Tess. So we'll do questions from the committee. Maybe see if any of our remote committee members have any questions first, and then we'll go to the in-person committee members.
You want me to go first? Okay.
If you would like.
That's fine, thank you. I think there's obviously, first of all, thank you, staff, Tess. Appreciate all the work that's going into this, so thank you. I would say the questions for me are, and this is sort of a question to the parking staff, is what analysis have we done to understand our, excuse me, our future needs? So I'd like to, I don't know if I need an answer to that yet, or just to understand, do we have that data yet to our future needs for the parking system as a whole?
So, Chair Pinner, we have done an initial and fairly crude analysis at this point, taking a look at basically taking the current demand, the current peak demand that we see in the parking lots, and sort of overlaying that on the projected number of new spaces in the proposed development. So that basically assumes that that the demand for parking remains relatively constant, and then adding on top of that the expected demand for the residential spaces. So as Tess noted, there'll be 233 assigned parking spaces is what's currently planned in the Paseo Nuevo lot. There is an expectation that there would be 82 residential units developed. We don't yet know how the parking for that would be managed. Our recommendation to the Housing Authority is to sort of unbundle that, not to have designated spaces for them, but to make monthly permits available, just as we do already for downtown residents in City Lot 2. But again, those agreements have not been finalized, and that plan has not been finalized yet. So we took our current demand plus the expected residential demand and overlaid it on the expected, the planned number of spaces. When we did that, we found that there still remained a good amount of capacity in all 3 parking lots in question. However, we also then went back and took our occupancy from 2018. So when the Nordstrom and Macy's businesses were still open. Yeah, we actually have slides of this I can show you. Is it? We'll try to get those up. And while we do that, so we took the again, we took the demand from 2018, again, subtracted out those residential spaces and the spaces that are going to be and use the number of spaces that would remain. And when we did that, we did find that lot 2 at that point would reach capacity. I used numbers from July, both in the afternoon, so peak hours. So July is one of our busiest months. So just use that as kind of a typical month. And then also looked at the evening hours because residential and commercial demand are going to be a little bit different. Residential peaks in the evenings and weekends, whereas commercial demand, we see peaks around midday during the week. So again, that was a very sort of crude analysis. It doesn't account for example, again, whether the parking is assigned versus unbundled. It doesn't account for variations in the number of vehicles that may be demanded based on the size of the units. However, for this type of development where we have residential units located in the city center and in a commercial area where you have a lot of employment in the area, we do expect vehicle ownership and a demand for vehicles to be lower. So again, it's not an exact science at this point, and this is something we're going to continue to look at and model closely. But this is, so now we have the slide up. I apologize for the little delay there in the Microsoft hang up. So yeah, with current demand in the present lots, with the current number of parking spaces, and this also uses a projection for lot 1, because again, we don't have the exact data in the same way that we do for the city lots. So basically what I did is I took the occupancy for lot 2, which is the closest lot, and just assumed it would be similar for lot 1. So like I said, crude analysis. So this is the number of spaces that are available. So at peak demand currently, so for 2025, we had a total of 1,083 spaces available across all 3 lots in, again, mid-afternoon, and then over 1,400 spaces in the evening. So lots of parking availability. We go back to 2018, and that drops fairly considerably. So at peak hours across all 3 parking lots, we had almost 700 parking spaces that were available, and then the evening up to 1,200. So, still plenty of parking availability in the area across all 3 lots. So if we look post-project, we take the planned number of spaces, we take the expected residential use, just again assigning 1 vehicle per unit, and assuming that those vehicles are in there all the time, which again, that lacks a lot of nuance. Applying current demand, again, we still have a good number of parking spaces that are available during peak hours, so 617 at the peak afternoon hours and then 973 after hours. However, again, if we were to overlay that 2018 demand, that's when we get into some more constrained supply. So you'll see that we still have a good number of parking spaces that are available during the day if you look in total. However, lot 1 is expected to be impacted and lot 2 would be expected to be full, essentially. And so, that is where the change would likely come. So again, this is just very crude, very preliminary numbers. It doesn't take into account, for example, the fact that we won't have the Macy's and the Nordstrom property, and so we may not have the same level of commercial demand exactly. And Tessville has already gone through the applicant's parking analysis, but this was our sort of staff level very quick numbers.
Well, thank you. That's great data, great information. I'll limit myself to two more questions because I know we have a full house. One is maybe to test, and it's kind of a simple question. What's the plan for the ground floor of the low income housing? Is that housing, or do we see that as being a retail or other type of activity uses?
Yes, Committee Member Pinner, and to the full committee. We are still in discussion with the applicant on what the ground floor use will be, but they have indicated a community use, so like a community room or some kind of amenity for the 80 units of low income affordable. On the outside right now, they're showing some kind of small outdoor areas in that space. So I would anticipate that the ground floor at least partially has some use that is for the residents of that building. And then
Oh, go ahead.
there's still some retail uses that are adjacent to Lot 2 or attached to Lot 2, so those buildings wouldn't be touched as part of this project, so those could remain and have retail uses. I mean, there certainly is a potential for them to put retail on that bottom floor that's publicly available, but that hasn't been part of the project to date.
Okay. But the land, just to clarify, the land on that lot is still owned by the city? So Lot 2 is still owned by the city? And would be.
Yes, that's correct.
That wasn't my third question. I'll use it now. In Lot 1, I think there's a requirement to have the 572 parking spaces, which I believe are public parking spaces. Is that changing with the residential component if we are taking some of the parking and giving it sort of is all the parking just general parking, or is some of it permit parking, so then we no longer have the 572 previously easement agreement for that lot?
Committee Member Pinner, so existing is 572 spaces. There would be an increase, they would be adding 28 additional spaces to Lot 1 to get at 600 total spaces. But the breakdown would be that 233 of the 600 spaces would be specifically for the market rate residential units. So they would be attached like you'd have a permit or a specifically assigned parking space for your unit. So those spaces, the 233 would not be available to the public. The remainder, the 320 retail spaces and the 47 anchor tenant spaces would be publicly available.
Great, thank you. I'll leave my questions there and let other members of the committee weigh in. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair Penner. Do we have questions from the in-person committee members? Go to Committee Member Labrie and then just kind of go down
Thank
the
you.
row here.
Thank you. And Ms. Harris, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the City Attorney's Office being here for questions as well. My first question is just, I'm trying to make sense of the math in simple terms on the net reduction in parking spaces available to the public. So currently, all the spaces that are built out are accessible to the public. There's going to be the demolition and private dedication of, I believe, about 419 of the current spaces. So that would be a net reduction of about 400 plus spaces accessible to the public. And then if, as it's intimated, I think there's potentially another 318 spaces left in Lot 2 that might be either demolished for an additional housing project associated with Nordstrom's. If that's definitely off the table, that would be good to know. But I see that as another reduction of about 383 spaces. So, and there's 28 spaces being added to that calculation. So the net reduction is almost 800 spaces to the downtown core. So help me out with my math. Where am I? Dan's shaking his head. Where am I off?
Honorable Chair, members of the committee, Dan Hinchke, Assistant City Attorney. I'm not following how you get to the numbers. Nordstrom does not affect Lot 2 at all. Nordstrom is,
Are you saying it won't?
it does not. The only proposal with regard to Lot 2 is the loss of the one bay of parking for the affordable unit location. So that's the only ones that are lost in Lot 2. What Tess indicated earlier is that there may be reserved parking for units that are constructed on the Nordstrom site, which is over Lot 1. And so they may be reserved within Lot 1 on top of, as Tess indicated, the 233 that are reserved for the market rate units affecting Lot 1. So within Lot 1, you might get a reservation of approximately 333 spaces within Lot 1.
So, sorry, 233.
233 for the
Privately
market rated
dedicated.
AB. We
Yeah.
know that now. We don't know what is going to be ultimately going on at Nordstrom's.
Right,
If we assume Nordstrom's is built out with housing units, and they make a similar request regarding one space per unit for the housing at Nordstrom's, and that's an assumption, we don't know what's going on there yet, then you would end up 233 plus 100, and you get 333.
Okay.
Within Lot 1.
Help me out with the very basic math of the total of all the projects that are proposed. There's an additional 28 spaces that are being built, right? That's the only additional parking that's being built. Is that
Correct.
So, but the amount of parking available to the public would increase by 28, but would be decreased by 233 being privately dedicated to the market rate, correct?
Correct.
And then the demolition of
186.
186 in Lot 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the net reduction in parking just from this project is those two numbers combined.
Yes. If you
The net reduction in
add the
parking-
186 and the 233,
Yeah.
you get a net reduction in spaces of about 420 or something like that.
Okay.
I can't add very quickly.
Yeah,
I'm a lawyer.
Me
I
neither,
don't
I'm
do
with
math.
you. And so then, and this project really, and the way that the city is set up, Lot 2 and Lot 10, and the 3 tracks underneath Paseo Nuevo, it's really just an open door for the Nordstrom's project to potentially convert to housing and similarly do an additional low-income project on the remainder of Lot 2. There's nothing precluding that from happening, is that correct?
Well, okay, so when you say there's nothing precluding that from happening, the answer is yes. There is something precluding that from happening, and that is the parties to what I'm going to call the Paseo Nuevo agreements, the leases, the REA, the parking covenants. They need to agree among themselves as to how that's going to be done. So Nordstrom's could not use Lot 2 to construct affordable housing without an agreement by AB to relinquish its parking rights within Lot 2. So there's no contemplation of doing any additional low-income units on Lot 2 at all. That's not being contemplated. I mean, you could speculate as to it happening, but then you'd have to have, all the parties would have to agree to that.
So I missed AB and the Macy's track, in essence, has continuing parking rights in Lot 2?
The answer is yes, under the current parking covenants. Whether those parking rights exist in Lot 2 subsequent to the DDA has yet to be determined. As part of the DDA, we will need to amend or rescind some of the control documents that deal with the existing Paseo Nuevo configuration. And so those reciprocal easement agreements that they have that give rights to the 2 and 10 parking lots are going to have to be amended and adjusted, which requires AB to make an agreement with Nordstrom's as to how that's going to happen, and then the city's going to have to agree to that.
I did notice in the original DDA that there is the contemplation of the redevelopment of some or all of the tracks with the provision that the city replace the parking within a 2-block radius. So it's something that was contemplated.
Excuse me, when you talk about the original DDA, I mean the one between the redevelopment agency and the original mall developer?
Correct, yeah.
That is no longer a controlling document.
Right. Yeah, and
So
the
we don't
parking
consider that at all.
covenants- The parking covenants are part of the documents that were rescinded by the city?
No. The DDA, the original DDA has been fully executed and implemented. It's no longer a controlling document. We have what we call a reciprocal easement agreement that is between now the Nordstrom owners, AB, and the city. It was originally between some other parties, but we took over from the RDA. AB took over from its successor in interest. Nordstrom took over from its successor in interest. But those are the 3 parties to the REA. There are also parking covenants that grant parking rights to what I'll just call the Paseo Nuevo developers, owners, in lots 2, 1, and 10. So they have rights to use those spaces. They are non-exclusive rights, which means that the city can use them for the purposes of public parking. They're public parking lots that they have rights to do. And basically, when you pare down the parking covenants themselves, what it basically does is it gives them a number of spaces for compliance with our zoning requirements for required parking in those lots. That's really what it does. But they also have the ability to make sure that those spaces are available for their land use purposes.
If I may, another question. Just if you give us a real quick basic understanding of the, the State Surplus Land Act, as I understand it in a nutshell, is if government has surplus land, it has to address the state's need for housing, essentially. And you can exempt it under certain circumstances. But in this case, the city's desire, the applicant's desire is to create housing on Lot 2. So what exactly was the need for the Surplus Lands Act exercise?
The need for the Surplus Lands Act exercise, as you called it, was we couldn't do the deal without going through that process. And so what the city utilized under the Surplus Lands Act was an exemption process. There's either surplus land that the cities can make available through a process of disposal that requires making it available to other public agencies, school districts, housing authorities, and others. Then a process for making it available for affordable housing to affordable housing developers and such. But it's a very specific process that you have to go through before you can dispose of the land. There's also a process to exempt parcels that meet certain criteria from the Surplus Land Act. They're called they're just called exempt parcels. And in this particular case, because of all the agreements that currently restrict the use of the property, and those existing agreements were in place prior to a date that's specified in the Surplus Land Act, which preclude the use of the property for housing purposes, and they do. You cannot build housing on Paseo Nuevo or in any of these parcels without agreement by Nordstrom's and AB as the right owners. And so because of that, we went to the city council and worked with HCD and had the council approve a resolution exempting Paseo Nuevo, and then again Lot 2 from the Surplus Lands Act because of all these existing agreements that don't allow the property to be used for housing. HCD has approved those. Now we can go forward with putting forward a deal, a transaction, if you will, that will allow the property to be redeveloped in the way that is being contemplated by this proposal.
Okay. And then, if I may, another question to the whole team, really. Years ago, the city identified Lot 3 and studied the development of Lot 3 with housing above parking. And probably would need a similar process. But really, the heart of most of my questions are, do we have to tear down one of the newest parking assets, a $20+ million asset, when we have other lower hanging fruit, if you will? And, I think anybody who has been a citizen appreciates the need for housing, right? Or anybody who's tried to become a citizen appreciates the need for housing. So my line of questioning is, and this committee's job really is to preserve and protect and advise City Council how to appropriately manage its parking supply downtown for ultimately the economic vitality of the city, the cultural vitality of the city. I think about the Music Academy of the West that just bought 901 State Street, and is now going to lose a significant amount of its parking potential. But our job here is to look big picture, and we look at the whole system. So sorry, that question rambled a bit, but my point is, why tear down the second newest asset when we've got other assets?
I can answer the question of why not Lot 3 and why Lot 2. And it has to do with the way that the state density bonus law works. Lot 2 and 10 were actually built by the redevelopment agency with redevelopment agency dollars. And then they actually, in order to finish those projects, they got a $2 million loan from the developers of Paseo Nuevo. So it was part redevelopment agency money, part city money. Yeah, but they're new because they were built in connection with and for the development of Paseo Nuevo. But in order to provide affordable housing and meet the state density bonus law, the developer has to either provide the housing within the market rate units. And originally, that was what was contemplated when we first came to the council for the first project agreement, I believe, in March 24. And that contemplated a much larger project with all of the affordable units on site. And that didn't involve Lot 2 at all. It was all on the Paseo Nuevo Lot 1 properties itself. That was not financially feasible. It was not a buildable project for a lot of reasons. So AB came back with a second proposal, and that was to not put the affordable units within the market rate units on site of the old Macy's building, but instead proposed an off-site location of more affordable housing units, and that's where the 80 units came from. Because there were two other parcels that were potential, they looked at Lot 10 and Lot 2. Lot 10 was unavailable because it is not adjacent to Paseo Nuevo, the property itself. It's down Ortega Street a bit. The state density bonus law says that if you're going to provide affordable units and they're not part of the market rate units you're building, you can build them on another parcel as long as it's part of the same project and the parcel is adjacent to the parcel where the market rate units are being built. The parcel where the market rate units are being built is basically the entirety of Paseo Nuevo, and Lot 2 is adjacent. So we couldn't go to another parking facility like Lot 3. Lot 3 is still available for development of housing, should the city choose to do so. It would have to go through the Surplus Land Act process with regard to Lot 3, but it cannot be part of this project because it's not adjacent to Paseo Nuevo. So the options that still remain for the provision of affordable housing are put affordable units within the market rate units or put them over on Lot 2. The current proposal by the developer is put them on Lot 2 and provide more units than 24 units within the market rate. So that's why not Lot 3. It's a function of state law and the density bonus law. Not Lot 3 for this project.
Do you mind? Yeah. My apologies to the rest of the committee for monopolizing the questions at the moment, but I promise I'll be done here for a sec. It seems like we have kind of paper mache handcuffs in as much as if Planning Commission and the city said, well, we think that's stupid, we don't want to tear down a $20+ million project, we want to build on Lot 3 at the density level that we want. What's to stop us from doing it? I mean, you use the state bonus density when the current ordinances don't allow you, or you do it because it's a get out of jail free card, kind of. If we all wanted to just put the density over on Lot 3, could we not just decide to do that? Like, is there anything that really, truly handcuffs us?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
State law. And also, the city is not developing this housing. The developer is the one, AB has the development rights with regard to Paseo Nuevo. AB is the developer of the project, not the city. The city is contributing to the project in order to make it financially viable under the current proposal by providing the land in order to make the property, make the development available for building. I guess is the best way I can say it. AB is actually the one that's building the project, and AB cannot build the project and using the state density bonus law on Lot 3. We cannot make them do that. We don't have any legal authority to do it.
That's all I got for now.
All right. Fun of state density bonus law. We'll go to my right. Any questions on this side? Nothing? I have a couple. Did you? Yeah. Good.
I'm just interested in how you guys came to the conclusion that it was not financially viable to have the market rate units with the AUD units.
the city does not make that determination. The developer is making the proposal. And so AB has proposed putting the affordable units in a separate building where they are, and frankly, they can be financed through low income tax credit better when they're in a separate building. And so that's why they propose putting them over on Lot 2 and actually providing more units. Could they put it into, put all the 24 units on the Macy's property and not use Lot 2 at all? That's something that they would have to answer, but that is an option that they have if they choose to take that option. And that decision has not been made. It has not been incorporated into the development disposition agreement at this time. We're going forward with the proposal that AB has put forward for the delivery of housing on the property that it controls.
Any more questions from the right here? I'll ask a couple. I think the first one will probably be for Tess. For the market rate units, do we have any sense for the bedroom count composition of those proposed units at this time?
Committee Member Newkirk and to all of the committee members, at this time we don't have an exact breakdown for the market rate units. I shared the affordable breakdown, which is about 20% for Studio 1s, 2s, and 3s. We're not certain of if that breakdown will be the same or if there will be some slight adjustments to it yet.
All right, and then another question about kind of density bonus and the 80 units versus the 24 required. I saw somewhere in the PC packet that there's consideration possibly for banking those units for future development.
AB has suggested that it would like to have credit for additional units that it provides on Lot 2 for its use for potential future market rate development on the Paseo Nuevo property. That is not, we're negotiating that issue. And it's not part of the current development disposition agreement. It's a suggestion that AB has made and the city has not ultimately agreed to that position at this point. It's part of the negotiations.
And if the city did, would that be part of the DDA or would that be a future decision?
It would be included within the DDA as a potential future but to be honest with you, I don't know a mechanism for providing that credits at this time. We don't have like a transfer of development rights provision. So I don't know how that would actually function. We'd have to develop a program to allow that to transfer. And when this came up, the Housing Authority, they mentioned that on Housing Authority projects, if the developer is not financing all of the units for which it gets credit, the Housing Authority, for example, would not provide that kind of credit. It doesn't provide credits within its projects. So there's a lot of issues that have to be addressed in order to provide the credit that AB is requesting. They have requested it. The council has said, yeah, okay, let's talk about it, but we don't have a definitive direction from the council on whether or not that credit is going to be something that is included within the development agreement. That's something that's going to be decided by council when it comes back to it.
Okay, thanks. Without commenting too much, I think that kind of changes the narrative of the project quite a bit if they're allowed to bank those units. It's in terms of the BMR versus market rate, that really changes the value, I think, to the city. And then a question I think for parking staff, downtown parking staff is, and I don't know the garage 2 that well. I don't use it ever, but I think on Chapala there's at least an exit point, if not an access point, and so those would go away. So are there any concerns about circulation within that garage? Would it just be the one ingress-egress point moving forward for that garage?
So Vice Chair Newkirk and committee members, There is one entrance on Chapala that would be lost. The other entrances and the exit on so there are, I'll have Roy come up and elucidate the number, but there are multiple entrances on Cannon Perdido, and there is an exit on Chapala, so those would all be retained.
Good morning, committee members. Yes, so there is, on Chapala, there is an exit that there would be no issues with the exit just because of the location of the housing units. The entrance would be taken away. So that would leave the 2 entrance lanes off of Cannon Perdido, and then both exits will stay available, the one off of Cannon Perdido as well as the one on Chapala Street. Flow would be a different story. And we would have to evaluate just exactly how that happens, because at this point, as you enter in the parking lot and go up the ramp, the only way to continue up the ramp is going towards your right, which is the lane that essentially would be taken away. So that whole north side of the parking lot that would be taken away would mean that both the up ramp and the down ramp are left, but when you make the right to go up the parking lot, all that whole part of the parking lot's gone. So how that would work is, I guess, something that would have to be discussed, but the change of traffic flow would be absolutely needed to essentially just even go up into the parking lot.
Great. Any other questions from committee? Yeah, Committee Member Stahl.
Thank you. So we already in Santa Barbara have a residential parking permit program. I guess I'm curious how this would work, that people would have, in these units would have single assigned parking spaces, but if they don't have a car, if they don't want one, is the permitting separate from the lease, or would that be part of an individual's lease agreement that they're guaranteed parking?
That has not ultimately been determined at this time. It's something that we're discussing in the context of the DDA. What AB has told us is that at least for the market rate units that are where the Macy's building is, those would essentially be gated off by some kind of gating structure and available only to residents of the building. So that's their current proposal. With regard to unbundling parking or providing parking rights with respect to Lot 2 for the affordable units, we have not made any determinations at that time. It would be part of the DDA.
Yeah, Committee Member McCray.
Regarding that, with the reduced retail footprint from where it is today to where it will be in the future, it looks like AB's analysis is still calling for 2 per 1,000, 2 spaces per 1,000. Is that what is essentially what you all envision as well as what will be left when we take out the specifically dedicated residential parking? Does that make sense from a retail perspective in today's environment? Obviously, it's been that way since the beginning, but today, does that still work?
Committee Member McCray. So that parking ratio, the 2 spaces per 1,000, is what our ratio is in our municipal code. So we would expect that would still be applicable. We haven't done a parking study that would indicate otherwise. So that's where that would come. I think, the other piece of this, though, is because it's in the central business district, these numbers would be conservative in terms of the requirement for parking, because technically there isn't that requirement there.
All right, any more questions from committee before we go to public comment?
Vice Chair, I do have 2 other quick ones, and then we can get to public comment.
Sure, go for it.
Just wanted to ask staff if they've had the opportunity to weigh in on, as Roy was mentioning, the physical aspects of the structure of Lot 2 modifications. Have we gotten to that point yet, or are we just kind of guessing at it, or have we done any analysis?
Committee Member Pinner and to all of the committee members, that is still something that the applicant team is working on. So they are doing a structural analysis and looking at circulation for that lot right now. The staff team would be weighing in on that at a future date.
Great, thank you. My other question is a little bit of a follow-up to Mr. LaBrie's line of discussion, and it's probably to Mr. Henschke, is with regards to part two. There's two parts to this. One is AB is required to build these 80 units in any order. Do they have to build the 80 units before the for rent or market rent? That's part of the question. And then two, is there an opportunity for an in lieu fee? So to kind of maybe follow the direction that Mr. LaBrie going is, I understand your connection for the bonus density being connected to a lot, but is there an opportunity for an in lieu fee?
Honorable Chair, members of the committee, I'll answer the second question first. Is there an opportunity for an in lieu fee? The answer is no. Actual units have to be built when you're using state density bonus law. With regard to the state density bonus law, it's important to understand that the reason that they're using the state density bonus law is that they need to get the height that they're proposing in order to build the project at all. And so they have to, the requirement under the state density bonus law that they're proposing right now is basically 24 units. And the additional units that are being proposed on lot 2 using some kind, using either the housing authority or another low-income housing provider, AB has proposed that as, like they said, an additional community benefit. But their requirement under state density bonus law is about 24 units.
Does that mean they would not have to build the 80? They'd only have to build the 24?
No.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so if we follow the path of the housing units on lot 2, those housing units would have to be secured and basically ready to build at the time that they build the market rate units and before the city transfers the land. And that would be part of the DDA. In other words, the DDA is almost like a purchase and sale agreement for property that for us to transfer the property to them, they're going to have to meet a whole series of requirements, including performance guarantees and assurances that the projects will actually be built and occupied for the purposes that they are proposed. And so we'll have affordability covenants. We'll want to make sure that the projects are financed, building permits are issued, construction plans are approved for all of the units before any land is transferred from the city to AB. So those kinds of guarantees are going to be conditions that AB has to meet before we close on the real estate transaction under the development and disposition agreement.
Thank you very much.
All right, any last questions? All right, let's go to public comment. Staff?
We have no speakers for public comment.
All right, I guess they're all waiting for later today. All right, let's go to comments, and we can certainly provide individual comments. We also have the option on the agenda. If we have agreement on anything, we could formulate something to provide to council, but does anyone have comments that they would like to start with? Committee Member LaBrie.
Yeah, Mr. Henschke just said something interesting that I had not kind of focused on earlier, which I'd invite you to respond to if I'm incorrect in this, but it sounds to me like the state bonus density, the election to employ the state bonus density really allows them to exceed the height limit on the market rate part of the project.
It actually allows them to exceed the height limit on both projects. But yes, it's necessary for the market rate units as
As it's proposed.
That's what they've indicated is required. And we don't, under state density bonus, we would have to show that, we would have to make an affirmative showing that it's not economically required, and we don't have that information, so.
Personally, I think it's fine. I think the scale and massing of the building is appropriate and will fit in with the neighborhood. I don't see a problem. And I think if HLC and Planning Commission both agreed with that, essentially, as I understand it, that would eliminate the need, if you will, for state bonus density law. So that's the one exemption that they're employing. And, you know, if you don't need the state bonus density law, then you're a little bit freer, it sounds like, for the city to say, we'd like to create a way to bank or in lieu or move the residential component to a more suitable lot. So in the interest of the entire community, and in the interest of this committee's kind of mandate, you know, I would love to see the city think outside of the box about how to preserve a parking asset that is really at the center of our economic core. What needs to happen, I'm certainly not an expert in. I'm glad that the experts, you know, are here. But I think that would be a comment that I would love for the other committees and the city to consider. It feels like this is at the 11th hour because the project has evolved in, you know, in private conversations, if you will. So I do feel a sense of urgency that I wouldn't otherwise if this had been a more, you know, open, longer public discussion. But, you know, the fact remains that this committee wants to look out for the music academies of the West who are hoping to use that parking, and other businesses that have, and property owners that want to intensify their development with the benefit of that zone of benefit and the, you know, just the parking that could be utilized. And so it's always, personally, I'm conflicted as I understand how important housing is, and I don't want to see that jeopardized. And yet it's now been put in the ring, direct conflict with another really important city asset. I mean, parking was what helped fuel the redevelopment and economic vitality of downtown. And now we're looking at, you know, a potential significant loss. I think one other comment I would make is that this seems to open the door to the loss of the rest of Lot 2. Certainly if Nordstrom's is redeveloped as housing, I would expect that there'd be a strong pull to dedicate some additional Lot 1 parking to residential units. And I think it's important. Peter Lewis's project is probably a good example of how you know, people still want to have, if they're going to pay a lot of money for a downtown unit, they want to have access to parking. And this is going to be a growing issue as we look at how to insert more housing downtown. So this committee, I think, hopes to be at the forefront of the conversation in the future about how do we lace into our downtown housing while addressing the need for parking. So, you know, this is a gateway project that seems to force the door open in certain ways that at least this committee member wishes to have had more of an opportunity to nuance this. I understand that there are things that I don't understand certainly with regard to Surplus Lands Act and, the almost 500 pages of underlying documents that were dumped on us relative to the underlying agreements. We didn't have a lot of time to review them, but in the same vein as what I've said earlier, I think where there is a will, there is a way, and as a community, we shouldn't box ourselves into the corner and have to sacrifice in the way that this project is asking us to sacrifice. And we've worked really hard to make sure that people have convenient and affordable, accessible parking downtown for the visitors that come down. You can't eliminate all the parking and hope to survive as a downtown core, right? And that's not what we're proposing, but we're heading in a direction that ultimately this project reduces the amount of parking in our downtown core. Those are my comments.
And since we're not in a hearing, maybe if we could have a clarification, if we didn't use state density, if the applicant didn't avail themselves of state density bonus law, would we need a charter amendment to facilitate approval of the proposed project?
Committee Member Newkirk, yes.
So
For the height
For the height.
allowance?
That's- yeah.
Yes, so there's a 48-foot height allowance currently with a 60-foot height allowance for a community benefit project. This would probably qualify for that, but this project goes beyond that, which would mean that the only other way to get to that height would be a charter amendment.
And that would require a vote.
That would
of
include
the
a
public.
2/3 vote of the public,
Okay, thank you.
right? All right. A simple majority, apologies.
Still a vote of the public, so there's
A vote of the public,
a
though, yes, it
significant
would be on the
process,
ballot.
which is, I think, why they're using state density bonus law. Other comments from committee members? Committee Member Stahl.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just echo what Committee Member LeBray said, that it really feels like, if I understood things correctly in the clearest terms, the city is using state law to get itself out of city-made restrictions. And with this project, then the collateral damage is a parking lot that has had significant capital investment in recent years, rather than addressing some of the underlying issues. And there doesn't, from what I've heard today, isn't really paired with attempts to address those underlying issues that got us into this position. So it's a shame if this capital investment in Lot 2 gets lost as a part of that, and using these state laws as an exemption of kind of problems of our own creation here.
Other comments? Committee Member Evers?
Yeah, similar on the echo. From my understanding, the ROI on this project is well below what investors would want to see. And so there's significant public investment from the city, basically giving the land to AB. And it seems as if the Lot 2 is, and putting the 80 units in Lot 2 is kind of a cop-out that the investors or that AB is using to justify their state density bonus law, rather than give us options of a different proposal that it could be in the main unit with the market rate units. They're displacing the AUD units to around a block away for the AUD units. So it would be great to have had multiple project proposals that we could have went over, because they are painting in the lens of doing great things, which awesome 80 AUD units and 233 market rate units. Is it something like that? Wonderful. As a citizen, I want more housing here as well. I don't want high home prices. But displacing those units a block away does not feel right from humanitarian lens. Yeah.
Other comments? Do we have comments from Chair Pinner?
Yeah, just a couple. Thank you. I'm going to go back to my first question that I asked staff, but turn it into a comment, and that's the long-range planning comment about have we studied our parking, and I think you guys did a great job of answering the question of studying our parking sort of right now. But I want to sort of echo, and I should have started off by saying I agree with what Mr. LeBrie said. I echo his comments. So thank you, Mr. LeBrie, for going first and saying many of the things we all want to say, and I want to echo that. And on that factor, the number of units we're losing, maybe as we mentioned, about 420 parking spaces could be lost as a part of this to the public. And as we understand the goal is to provide more housing downtown. That's our goal. And if more housing downtown does come without any parking, the only assets we're going to be able to look to are the existing parking structures. We have a project just across Chapala on the old phone GTE Verizon site, Frontier site, that's producing more housing units, I believe, with no parking. And I believe there's going to be more and more and more of that. So when I asked the question about have we studied our parking needs, I'm looking not just now, not 2026, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So we're not like, wow, we really didn't plan this well, and now what are we going to do? So I just want to make sure we're really thinking that way. Second part, I really think it's hard for us to really comment on Lot 2 without understanding and hearing the information of how it's going to physically be impacted. We've talked about it being cut in half or cut down, or I don't know if it's torn down or rebuilt. I really think it needs to get back to this committee what actually is happening to Lot 2. It's kind of very hypothetical right now, so I'd really like to see that. And I'll follow up on Mr. Newkirk's comment about the charter amendment. If we're going to go the charter amendment route, we can just do a charter amendment to allow leases longer than 50 years, and we can still retain the land. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Chair Penner. I have just a couple. I'm not as concerned about the offset location of the affordable, because I think when you get the housing authority involved, there's such a benefit for their management of below market rate housing that I think there's an offset there that has some real value, rather than having a market rate property manager manage below market rate units, which I think can become a real headache for the city in terms of ensuring that those units are actually managed appropriately. And we have the subject matter experts. So I think there is some value there. I'm skeptical of some of the parking assumptions without knowing the unit makeup of the market rate, like this one spot per unit. And I understand that, like, under state law, we can't require parking, but we're also doing a discretionary agreement. So I don't, there seems to be some leverage there. But if you're talking about a similar mix to the BMR units, 3-bedroom units are going to have more than one car. I mean, that's just like, and even the below market rate units, just because they're below market rate doesn't mean you're only going to ever have one car. So if you have a 3-bedroom unit for below market rate, you're still going to have more vehicles. So I think some of the assumptions about retained availability and for like commercial parking, I think is questionable. And I, perhaps out of our purview a little bit, I think it should be really clear about whether these units can get banked or not. Because I think when we look at the project and the sacrificing of parking infrastructure, I think one of the major sells is below market rate housing downtown. And if we don't know what percentage of this project is actually the bigger project, including the Macy's, is any future speculative Macy's project, if we don't actually know what percent of the units are below market rate, I think it's hard to kind of try to balance the losses to downtown parking infrastructure and sunk costs, et cetera. I think that becomes difficult to really do. And so I hope that comes to the fore in the discussions with Planning Commission and subsequently with City Council. Those are my thoughts. I don't know that we have a kind of clear consensus on something we want to send to City Council, but I think unless there are further comments, I think that's kind of the last question for the committee, is whether we want to, as a body, send something forward with kind of a unified voice. Committeemember Labrie.
Can I ask Ms. Harris a question, and maybe council? What you're talking about, this needs to go to City Council and it's going to Planning Commission this afternoon. What is the process? I know it feels expedited, but tell exactly what is the process?
Sure, Committee Member Labrie. So it is going to Planning Commission for conceptual review. The application in right now is a pre-application, a PRT, and so that is what triggers the concept review for both the Historic Landmarks Commission and Planning Commission. And then because of the Lot 2 impacts, it's before your committee as well. The disposition and development agreement will go before council before the end of 2025. We are anticipating the first council hearing in December for that. And the reason for that is to complete the disposition and development agreement by the end of the year. It would need to come back it would go for sort of the initial reading and then would come back for adoption a couple weeks later in December. So if your committee wanted to provide formal comments as kind of one body, you would want to complete your a letter or comments and have that submitted probably by the end of November.
And just to Ms. Clark, so we could have a motion here, try to gain some consensus, and maybe come back to maybe get something written down. I don't know, with the help of staff or chair and vice chair, and then make a more, have it in front of us at our November meeting. Would that be possible?
Yeah, Vice Chair Newkirk, and that if as a committee you decide that you do want to transmit formal comments, that's what I would recommend, is that you make a motion with some general consensus. We can draft something and then bring it back for review and approval.
Committee Member Labrie?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I agree with that recommendation, but the applicant is moving forward probably, full steam, I would think, at least on the market rate part of this project. Do you anticipate that the affordable part of the project is going to be on the same track, or is it on its own track? So, and really the question is, how urgent should we feel about, because I think the general consensus is what's proposed for the Paseo Nuevo proper site. I didn't hear any negative comments about even the dedication of what's currently publicly accessible parking. That's part of that. I didn't hear any objections. Really, the heartache is about the loss of Lot 2.
What I can assure this committee is that staff will, in the negotiation of the development disposition agreement, convey the comments that we've received here today to AB for their consideration as we're moving through the drafting process. And so while preparation of a formal letter will be important to get in front of the city council for their decision-making process, your comments are not lost on us, and we will communicate them in the process of what we're drafting to take to council.
All right, any other thoughts from the committee, if there's interest in trying to formulate something, or if we're comfortable with the feedback we've had the opportunity to give today? Committee member.
Vice Chair, if I could weigh in on that, I would say we should, I think we're sort of leaning towards an agreement towards providing a formal communication for council that would be ultimately decided on at our November meeting. But it's possible to give a few data points that we want staff to prepare or study or update us on at that November meeting. So you might be able to get some ideas on what you want staff to also provide for that meeting as well.
Is there anything, committee members, in terms of information and data for the next meeting that people would like? I mean, I'd be interested in any information from the housing authority on parking demand for their projects. I don't think we want to deny them how their parking demand, but I think to understand the impact to the rest of Lot 2, I think that would be helpful. And also, if there's any information we can glean about the market rate proposal in terms of unit mix and trying to understand what that'll do to parking demand, perhaps in Lot 2 as a spillover of the market rate, I think would be helpful, certainly for me. Anything else committee members would like to understand better?
I would add to that. I think we need clear understanding of the physical impacts to Lot 2. We still just don't have some even drawing of what Lot 2 would look like. I don't think I saw it in the package of operationally how Lot 2 would even lay out.
Good, thanks for that. Does anyone want to make a motion in terms of like a concept for a formal submittal to City Council that staff could then draft? Committee Member Labrie.
Let me make an attempt. I would move that staff be directed to work with a ad hoc committee of the board to draft a formal position memo to be forwarded, to be reviewed and approved at the November meeting with the intent of presenting to City Council at the earliest opportunity thereafter. Is that?
To clarify, when you say the board, to work with the board.
Sorry, the committee, the parking committee.
And just for like Brown Act purposes, would you think that'd be through the chair? Because we couldn't, or because we don't have a set ad hoc committee, I think, for this purpose.
We don't at the moment, that's true.
Would you like to clarify that coordination through the chair or through the vice chair, or would you some other?
Is he coordinated through the vice chair? Unless Trey, are you going to be back soon?
Yeah, I'll be back on Sunday, so it could be both chair and vice chair.
Coordinated through the chair and vice chair.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. So with regard to forming an ad hoc committee to prepare sort of comments, formal comments to be submitted, the problem you get there is you could direct staff today to consider and bring back the formation of an ad hoc committee, but you can't appoint an ad hoc committee today. And the further complication with that is if you had, since you have a 7-member board, if you had 3 members on the ad hoc committee, that ad hoc committee could not communicate with another member of the committee, because then you would have a majority communicating outside of a Brown Act meeting. So, my recommendation would be, if you can formulate direction to staff today to bring back in a proposed formal communication in your November meeting, that would be preferable from going through the steps to try to do that through an ad hoc committee. Just my recommendation. Thanks.
A follow-up question on that. If instead of nominating an ad hoc committee today, as you mentioned, they were to direct staff to coordinate with the chair and vice chair on drafting, would that be acceptable?
Yes, that would be fine, right? Because that's an informal, wouldn't be a 3-member committee.
And I think that's the motion that is actually on the table right now with a first.
Correct.
So is there anyone that would like to second that motion?
Good. I'll second it. Thank you.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, can we go to a roll call vote?
Committee Member Labrie,
Aye.
Committee Member Evers,
Aye.
Committee Member McRae,
Aye.
Committee Member Stahl,
I,
Vice Chair Newkirk,
Aye.
Chair Pinner,
Yes.
Committee Member Pratt is absent.
Okay, I think that finishes off that item. Thank you to staff, and good luck with the rest of your road show the rest of the week. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here, so thank you. Do we have time for, I know we're kind of going long. We do have one more item. I don't know if there's a quick update. If there's a quick update, or if we should move this item, I'll defer to staff on that.
Thank you, Acting Chair Newkirk. This will be a very brief update for your item number 3, which is an update on the e-com implementation. This is significant because this year downtown parking will be bringing on e-commerce solutions for our monthly commuter permit holders, or anyone who basically holds a monthly permit in the downtown lots, as well as next residential permits. This effort is the first of ours to bring online about 1,000 individual permit holders into a new e-commerce solution, which is different than how it's been for the last 20 years in terms of how people pay for their monthly permits. The e-commerce is web-based permit management software where the customers manage their own portal. We have an admin portal, but basically all of the changes are made by the customer and then automatically affect their access to the lot. They can terminate the membership, they can reactivate it, all effectively immediately, especially because this is nested within the existing revenue and access control system that we have, which is currently SkiData. This is a SkiData software e-commerce solution that we're using. Basically, our current system uses physical applications or applications that are outside of the system. We manually process those. We manage a database, Microsoft Access and other old school databases. And payment is actually handled through Finance Department and mailing in of checks primarily. Permit blocking is a physical effort that could take a long time when people don't pay, which has kind of negative implications. It also can take a long time when people have paid and they'd like their permit back, but maybe they paid on a Friday, it wasn't processed, and they don't have their permit until early the next week. All of that effectively transitions to pretty immediate sort of subscription-based model through the SkiData e-commerce solution. The website is live. You can sign up right now for your monthly permit in anywhere where you might work downtown or a locals weekender if you are interested, including 24/7 permits for people who are residents of downtown who are seeking those type of permits. You create your own login, and then you can kind of toggle through the different options for effectively all of our lots. We have where parking permits are no longer available. We have the existing permit holders are effectively whitelisted in, and so we're able to kind of have transition almost all of our permit holders into this e-commerce solution. And we think it's a really significant improvement that was long in demand. We are, I would say, on the tail end of this, but this has been, I would say, a kind of a Herculean effort on our programs team. We developed the software with SkiData. The soft launch was September 16th. We effectively gave 1,000 folks 2 weeks to transition to this new system. Then we gave them a week of grace period. And then we are now in the mode of all permit holders must be current in our new system. Otherwise, we expect them to pay hourly rates. Effectively, if they have not yet transitioned to the e-commerce solution, they do not have a permit. And I want to say our team, and especially our accounting assistant, Kayla Fair in particular, but Ethan Pitney, the permit counter staff have all gone into some of the most intense customer service mode. They've been handling phone calls and video calls and walk-in customers all through the last couple of weeks, and transitioning folks who have been using one system for the last 20 years into a new system is a really tall order. They have really stepped up to the plate. I think delivered customer service levels that we should be really proud of. That's something that downtown parking is extremely proud of. We think that we have some of the best customer service in the city. We certainly have the longest open hours for customer service public desk out of anywhere in the city post-COVID. And we think that this is This has been a difficult transition for many customers, and we think that we're doing it really well. We effectively have, right now, of the 975 permittees that we plan to transition, 726 of those have signed up, and we just have a remaining 249 that are still transitioning. One thing that is different from our previous presentation on this is we're currently holding off on the wallet function. We allowed people to sort of make prepaid cards. To keep things simple, we've paused that, and we're going to circle back to that. There's been a lot of iterative work with our software developers through SkiData. Again, kind of a Herculean effort. So we're going to circle back to those options. And then the other options that we brainstormed with you all of what's possible with e-com, especially as we have upgraded the operating system for all of our revenue control. We also are looking at options to take on scanners and other features which would allow people to sort of instantaneously gain access without having to come in and get an HID card, which is our current model. And that's kind of the thing that slows down our current model, is that people have to, at some point, by mail or in the office, get a physical proximity card. And we think that we can transition past that as a future step that would make the most out of that e-commerce effort. The other thing I just really want to stress is that it's easier than it's ever been to get a parking permit, and parking permits are at discount. So if you regularly use downtown, and especially for a lot of people who've been working downtown and maybe on a hybrid schedule, but they're starting to work more frequently downtown, if you run the numbers, these monthly permits represent a significant discount from daily parking, and we've made it easier than it's ever been. And so if you go to just search downtown parking, City of Santa Barbara, and then look in permits, it'll be easier and quicker than it's ever been to get a permit downtown. You can actually enter your license plate. That's not the primary system, but that is an ancillary way to be read. And then we will also match you with an HID card, which will always gain you access to a lot that can serve as your regular parking. So that's the update. We are in the thick of it, but we are just about, or say the next 2 weeks, through this major step of the first of a few of the automation transitions that we're undertaking this year.
Great, thank you for that update. Any questions from committee members? Any from Amsterdam? All right.
No.
Open it
No
up
questions,
to
thank you.
public comment on this item.
No speakers.
And any comments from the committee? I'll end it on a positive note. This is, I think, exciting work that the staff is doing, so I think it's really appreciated by this committee, so thank you. And thank you to the staff that is not here.
Cool.
Chair,
if I could just say one more shout out, I especially want to appreciate both the operations and the maintenance team. As we've gone through this transition, as I did mention, we had to update the operating system for all of our revenue control. This was not without its challenges, and the maintenance team has helped do a significant amount of debugging. The operations team has been on it and really minimized any of the issues that we've had as we've transitioned our sort of legacy system. They've minimized any customer service issues for something, again, that's been a really tall order technically to implement. So thank you to the team.
great, thank you again. All right, that concludes the downtown parking meeting, and we are now adjourned.